Economists have urged the Nigerian government to tackle the challenges posed by high energy costs and insecurity, which have slowed down food production and foreign exchange volatility to tame the accelerating inflation in the country. According to the latest Consumer Price Index and inflation report by the National Bureau of Statistics on Friday, Nigeria's inflation rate climbed higher to 31.70% in February from 29.90% in January 2024. Professor of Economics and Dean, College of Postgraduate Studies, Caleb University, Imota, Lagos, Seun Ajibola, said the inflation rate may not reduce if economic fundamentals are not addressed. And to help unpack this, I'm joined live on the news by Olusegun Okunade, an economic analyst. Good morning, glad to have you join me.
Good morning, Debola. I'm glad to be here this weekend to share the set with you.
All right, how would you assess the government's efforts to control inflation through monetary policy, such as raising interest rates?
Thank you very much. We saw the first MPC meeting held by the CBN governor, who are the managers of the monetary policy, came out last month. We saw the interest rate moved by 600 basis up to as high as 22%. And the question we've asked ourselves is what the impact on average businesses, considering the challenges that we are faced with now. The truth of it is that the approach by CBN, by some of us, is an issue which we feel that it will actually impact more on an area where we've raised concern, and that has to do with production. So as it is, one of the areas of funding your business is by borrowing. So if you are borrowing as high as 22%, don't forget before now we've been roving between 18 and 19%. And that means there's going to be restructure of some of the current loan that have actually been borrowed. And knowing that all other indices impacting on the business are not cooperating in terms of energy, like you said in your intro, and the level of insecurity in having access to some of the raw materials. So you discover that the businesses will rather be nosediving because the cost of funds would be on the high side, coupled with energy costs and the insecurity denying you that access to the raw material. So for me, it's something that we are actually in talk with the CBN management in such a way that they can critically look at how we can manage the businesses in such a way that we can give them access. Because when you make the cost of funds on the high side, what that does is that it gradually impact on the cost of production, coupling with other parameters like energy cost, like the access to raw materials, availability of the raw materials. Don't forget that most of the raw materials that are actually needed are actually being imported, and they rely so much on foreign exchange. So increasing the interest rates, even though the CBN governor justified the reason, we feel it's going to impact more on production, and that we might not be coming out of the blues in the shortest possible time.
Okay, so beyond production, beyond how it may, affect businesses, how do you think the spike in inflation rates will affect or will impact the vulnerable in the society?
Debola, truth be told, it will impact them immensely. And what do I mean by this? You understand that the vulnerable, most of them rely on wages, not even salary. And if you even have to go by the salary, you know that you and I understand that the minimum wage as we speak is about 30,000. Even though the federal government made proposition that there should be additional payment, of which not all the states are actually following. As at my last count, I think about 10 states are complying with the addition of between 10 and 25,000, except for Lagos and other states that are actually adding 35. So when you put that together, even for those that are salary earners, you discover that a take home cannot even take them to the bus stop, not of taking them home. So the cost of things going up every day with the level of inflation that we are faced with will reduce whatever they can purchase. The purchasing power will definitely, as we speak, is not even zero, it's negative. When you imagine the cost of foodstuff that an average citizen or the vulnerable even needs for survival, going by Abraham Maslow's law, one of the things that they need is food. The food is really not affordable for them to do, to buy. So you discover that the basic needs that they need is even not being met. When you talk about the other aspect of it, which is shelter, you discover that because of the policy of the government, even those that are in the rented apartment are finding it difficult, because when you cannot even eat, how do you go about paying your rent? As at when do you, and what is obtainable for you? So the inflation rate, as we speak, is impacting more even on the vulnerable, because even the elites, as we speak, are not having that opportunity to even push down drain. Because I can tell you for free, currently, as we speak, the middle class are nowhere to be found in the scheme of things. It's the elite to the poor. And now we now have the class of the poor, which you most of the time will refer to as the vulnerable.
Just
so
to quickly
the
chip in there,
inflation
Olusegun.
is seriously
Yes,
impacting on them,
just
and
to
it's difficult
quickly
for them to
chip
even
in
survive.
there, apologies to butt in there, we have well established the impact of this spike in inflation on the underprivileged as well as on the vulnerable. But then, what do you think can be done to mitigate these impacts?
First and foremost, thank you for that. I think I want to go the route of saying how we can have our security being put in check. If we have security being put in place where the farmers can go to farm, the major problem with don't be surprised that because people are not going to farm, it's difficult for you to have availability of food. So the few that are available are actually being muzzled out by the elites. Because you and I, we go to the same market. The same way they buy bread is the same way we buy bread, and they are not using a separate material for them to even get that done. So the area the government needs to first tackle is one, security, in such a way that the farmers can go to the farm and plant and be able to harvest. How can we improve on mechanized farming? We have put the Minister of Agriculture on the toes to see how he can collaborate with states. We've seen some states having a good handshake. Look at Lagos and Minna. We've had it before, Lagos and Kebbi, in such a way that you can be an off-taker of some of the things that they are actually producing. So they will be guaranteed of their funds to replenish back and go back to the fund. But basically, I think security is key, and the area of collaboration among states. So I may not have the availability to produce, but I might be the off-taker to buy it up because I have the market to sell it to. So with that, we can have a balance in some of the things that we're doing, but it plays a major role. And if you take it off that, we need to work on the energy cost in such a way that the level at which organization is having high cost of operation can be reduced, and that on its own can see how they can improve the lot of some of the staff that they have. As we speak, a lot of companies are struggling because the cost of energy is on the high side. The national grid, keep experiencing challenges year in year, every season, every period with grid collapse and even non-availability, and people had to resort to the other alternative power supply. I imagine a station like
If I may
yours,
quickly come in there, Olusegun, I mean, talking about businesses. Yes, Olusegun, if I may quickly come in there, you talked about businesses being impacted by this spike in inflation. I wonder what you think, how this, leaves us in the eyes of foreign investment. How do you think the spike in inflation for Nigeria, is a signal to foreign investors?
Debola, sincerely speaking, it's a bad signal because when you have increasing inflation rate every period, the signal you are sending to the people is that the environment is really not conducive for business. You cannot plan. I'm sure you know that an average businessman cannot even plan for the next month, knowing fully well. Those days while we started businesses years back, coupled 20 years, 15 years ago, you can project and say that your invoice is valid for 90 days. That cannot be the major bone of presentation as we speak. In fact, people don't even give validity of invoice beyond 2-3 days, because what you buy yesterday is not sustainable for now. So with that inconsistency in the rise in prices of things, it's discouraging for foreign investors, because what that portends is that it can lead to an unrest at a particular point in time, because you believe that they are sitting on gunpowder, and situation where businesses cannot project. Before now, you can have projection via your business and feasibility analysis of 2 years, 3 years, 5 years of where you intend to be, but the mechanism are no longer working, and that portends a big risk for any foreign investment to come into the space, coupled with the level of insecurity that we are faced with. I think it's really not encouraging for them, and that's why we are seeing a lot of them exiting the business currently. And if you need to look at it, people that want to come, they have this understanding to see how those other multinationals in the country are faring, at least to have area of insight into the operation. And if you see that they are exiting, on what premise do you want to come in? So inflation on its own is contributing factor among other things that are impacting on our national growth.
Well, thank you so much for your insight on the news. Olusegun Okunade, an economic analyst, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Debola, for having me this morning, and a beautiful weekend to all our viewers across the globe.